Web goes tight, physics takes over. Director Mark Webb was particularly sensitive about making sure that the physics remained grounded and believable. To meet that directive, special tools were written by our development team to assure that gravity and other physical properties remained in check, wherever possible, and if cheats became necessary, the tools served as a guide for compensating or countering the action to assure that everything remains in balance. Artistic inspiration, as always, came from the comic book illustrations, and there's an endless source of material in the Marvel archives. The real challenge is to put those poses in motion, not just stringing a series of them together, but making sure that each pose is purposeful and the transitions are motivated by the action at hand, and of course selling the natural human mechanics along the way. And that's where the movement studies of our production stunt double came in handy. Animators use this reference as a guide, picking up on physical cues and extrapolating subtleties to broader performances. This process also inspired new actions that hadn't been seen before, like the overhand scramble, as we like to call it, a maneuver that he uses to accelerate himself up the web during chase sequences to make sure he's always gaining on his opponent. Animation also played a role in scenes where audiences would assume they're looking at practical photography, like the final standoff with Electro where Spider-Man is completely animated throughout, including the close-up performances. This gave the director the flexibility to add additional shots well after principal photography was complete. On a smaller scale, but equally important, is the muscle animation. The silhouettes and volumes are animated to specific lighting conditions for each shot, so that the contours of the sculpt are picked up in the specular areas of the render, just like in the comic book artwork where the muscle shapes are so clearly and artistically defined in dramatic lighting. Then a simulation pass adds jiggle to the muscle masses so they resonate realistically in response to both internal and external forces. And notice the wrinkling detail in his suit. The new suit design is much looser than it was in previous iterations, so a full-on cloth sim gave us the opportunity to bring out another layer of detail, with wrinkles driven not only by his movement but also react to the environment, like fluttering in the breeze during freefall.
The theme of time really comes into visual play in the Clocktower scene, which literally Spider-Man's battling Goblin among the gears of a clock.
I think one of the nice things about the Clocktower was that because they built a set and they shot actors and stunt doubles on the set, we did get that richness that we were able to model our CG after and integrate it with, and I think it really helped.
We were going to do a lot of compositing tricks for the Goblin because he was shot on a moving platform. And it turns out, you know, as so often happens, we get it into our world and discover we can do other things, and maybe with a little trickery and sort of developing the rigs, the animation rigs, to a point where you honestly can't tell the difference between the practical element and the CG element. And all of a sudden it just opens it wide open to doing what we need to do and making it a complete digital character. And where it was only intended, just like in the first Spider-Man, Spider-Man was really only intended to be seen, you know, this big in the distance as a CG character. And as it evolved, obviously he became more prominent, and I think that's what happened here as well.
Run! Run! Harry! Harry, put her down! You don't remember me?
No? There's a sequence in Times Square that we call the Spidey sense scene. And Mark had the idea that it was a frozen moment in time to show Spider-Man working out all the complexities of saving these people in a single moment. And it became pretty complicated. Basically, there's 40 people standing still and the camera is moving among them, with Spider-Man working out angles, how to shoot his web and keep people from being electrified. So from a technical standpoint, we were looking at, well, how do you shoot a complicated shot where it's a moment in time when nobody's moving, but the camera has to move through it. Conceptually, it's very simple. We just had everybody practice for weeks holding a pose, and the camera just basically moves through in real time. And they would just hold still as best they could for the 5 or 6 minutes it took for the camera to move through. And then later on, we would just basically, in post-production, either paint or freeze them the best we could. That way, it was a very, very simple way to shoot it, but just took basically months and months of visual effects work to get the illusion to work.
The sequence itself, the sheer volume of the effects work, I think has really come together well. And my hope is that, people are so engrossed in the story and watching it that, some of those effects become seamless and you really, get involved with the story that's happening, and you're not focusing on the fact that everything that you're seeing in Times Square is not real.
In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, an expansive New York City environment was constructed with tremendous detail that would hold up to the scrutiny of full daytime illumination set forth by production design. The lighting team set the mood from a library of HDRI sky domes to produce different tones depending on time of day and atmospheric conditions. With an entirely digital scene, the team had free rein over manipulation of the camera to create an immersive experience, traveling with Spider-Man and seeing the world from his point of view. When the scene is entirely digital, restraint is necessary to assure the camera is manipulated in a way that's grounded and believable. A motion capture camera rig was used to acquire the response of a real camera operator impulsively reacting to the rendered animation played back through the operator's viewfinder in real time. This helps ground the animation in a film where the bounds of reality are already being pushed to the extreme. Action sequences that were conceived as multiple shots in previs were often stitched together to produce one continuous action that's much easier to follow. Again, shot through our virtual camera. The production shot pipe was configured to produce near-final renders of lighting early in animation blocking so that character, camera, and lighting could all be composed as one. Another breakthrough was our mesh lighting technology, where any surface could be converted into a light source. Rather than simulating light emission with incandescent materials, the bolt geometry itself was configured as a light source, which produced very natural results. Signs were also turned into mesh lights, which contributes to physically accurate lighting in Times Square. In fact, all of these geometric shapes became physical light sources. Building interiors used real furniture geometry together with mesh lighting to assure natural fall-off and a real sense of depth and parallax compared to traditional 2D mapping techniques. Lighting teams extended the mood in the Clocktower with the use of digital practicals, giving us complete cinematic flexibility inside this virtual world.
Hi, Vale here. Now, staying with the superhero movie theme, did you know that Spider-Man was almost called Flyman? No, I'm not joking. When Stan Lee was asked to create a new superhero to follow in the footsteps of the extremely popular Fantastic Four team, the legendary creator thought up Marvel's next big thing after spotting a fly on the wall. According to Lee himself, that got him thinking about a superhero that could stick to walls. Flyman and Insect Man were a couple of his ideas on the hero's name before coming up with Spider-Man. So what do you think about that? Let me know in the comments below, and I will leave you with some superhero movie playlist to watch. See ya!